Table for truth.
But hit me with.
All right, so here you go.
Your
Courtesy of our man Russell Brand,
Oh God.
I will be his mouthpiece for the evening, and I think, like I said, I dig what he has to say. I think he's
All right.
okay.
Hit me.
I'll just
Hit me.
all right. Do you think Barack Obama, Joe Biden,
Who?
Barack Obama?
Thank you.
That's my Yugoslavian accent. Sorry. Joe Biden, good old W. Bush, and Hillary all appear to want to escalate the war in the Middle East, even if it could bring us to World War III? Question mark.
Again, and I heard this. You sent me a clip, and I heard this from him. And what's with him? And again, the same thing with Trump, bringing up Obama again. Obama, Hillary Clinton, they're not in office. Talk to me. What he didn't mention was Joe Biden. I want to know what his feeling. Joe, I can't say I'm not concerned, but what they have to say, even though they've been experienced on the world stage, Clinton was Secretary of State, Obama was president, so their thoughts do matter, but I don't know why Brand is talking about them. They're old news. Talk to me about Biden. Talk to me about what's going on currently.
Well, I think that's because they represent political figureheads that were partially responsible for the previous clusterfunk. At least W. I'm sorry. Let's be straight here. Inducing the beginnings of the Iraq War in 2000.
That was Bush.
Yeah, that good old W. Right?
Yes.
Thanos, if you will. Well, Josh Brolin reference here for those of you who.
But again, I look at their old news. Talk to me about what the Biden administration is doing now, and then let's see if the criticism, if I think it's fair. All right, next one. Hit me.
All right. Do you feel the military-industrial complex wants this war to escalate? We can use individuals like Nikki Haley, the Nikki Haleys of the world, as puppets to run the military-industrial complex agenda. And by the way, in case you didn't notice, Vivek himself, during the debates, called her out, and she didn't really have a very solid response.
Called her out.
Yeah.
Did you watch the...
I saw that part, especially.
Oh, you saw the clip of it. Okay. I've got some problems with Vivek.
Well, yeah, I know a lot of people do, but I've yet to see.
What he called, and for whatever reason, he decided, and there's others, I guess Nikki Haley got a boost in the polls, so that they, instead of going...
Why did she get a boost in the polls? She didn't even answer that very well. Like
she didn't
take the snarky remarks by Vivek.
Here's what he said, or words to that effect, was that she was Cheney in 3-inch heels.
Right.
Again, that is sexist. You're on a debate stage, right? Yeah. You're going to go after one of your opponents. He didn't talk about any of the men up there with that.
No, he did actually. He brought up Ron DeSantis actually also wearing heels.
Well, he did say, okay. Yeah, there was 2 of them on stage.
So there you go.
He did. That was mine. But that's him wearing lifts. But again, when you're looking at Nikki Haley and her, actually, I thought her response was quite interesting.
What, just called him a scumbag?
No, she said that she's wearing 5-inch heels and she wouldn't wear them if she couldn't run in them.
Well, okay, that's a great comeback. And to be fair, then that kind of gets rid of the...
I'm saying the initial remark is sexist.
Yeah, it is sexist.
Yeah.
Now, I think for her comeback showed some emotional resilience, which is the most important thing.
And then he went after her daughter about TikTok because she slammed him for being on TikTok because he talked against it. Next you know, he's all over TikTok. And then he came back at her that her daughter was on TikTok and basically said you should take care of your family first. And then she went off on him.
Well, what exactly is her daughter doing on TikTok? Anything inappropriate, or?
Well, no. It's the whole thing about the Chinese government having access to all the data on TikTok, and so there are those who want to completely ban TikTok. As a matter
of fact, does Vivek want to ban TikTok?
Well, he said he does, but he's all over TikTok, and so that's what the point was about.
Well, just to play devil's advocate, but as Sun Tzu says, study your enemy. I mean, if you are against TikTok, you have to know how it works. You have to know its nuances and the threat it poses to the public. So, I mean, if her daughter is technically, just an addict in TikTok, we don't know that, of course. But like, if she's using TikTok, I don't know what the big deal is. If he just makes an observation that's proven that she was on TikTok,
right? But again,
he didn't mention her name or anything.
But well, basically,
I mean, didn't they do that to Barron Trump all the time? Like, on the other end,
no,
they just
no one that I've ever seen on either side, left or right, have talked about Barron. No one. Now, Eric, oh yeah, Junior, absolutely, but they're both on the campaign trail.
Right,
were at least in 2016, and again, they are public figures, so that's one thing. But no one's touched Barron.
Okay, but we still haven't really answered this question though. Do you feel the military-industrial complex wants this war to escalate?
No,
they don't. They actually want peace.
The military-industrial complex is irrelevant.
It's irrelevant to this, huh?
Yeah.
So they have no say or no profits to be made from this?
No, they can make profits, yeah, if they are, again, feeding the weaponry.
But they're morally they're morally against the idea of a war escalating, just even if they could profiteer off of it on either side. No doubt that they can sleep at night because the whole time they're like, well, yeah, we make guns, but we're not telling you to use them against each other. We're just hoping you're going to use them for target practice and hunting. But, deep down, we wish you guys weren't fighting. I'm assuming that's what's going on. Right?
No, I don't.
Because otherwise, it's one or the other.
View of actually both wars, the industrial complex doesn't even come to my mind.
Right, but that doesn't change the fact that it's an actual very real variable to the equation of all why this might be happening.
If
a good critical thinker would consider
what you and other theorists are saying is that they're the puppet masters manipulating all this.
Well, didn't they kind of buy out Nikki Haley in a sense, giving her a big stipend for?
Oh, they can contribute, but Nikki Haley didn't start this war either. So
no, but like I guess what I'm saying is the way you're making it sound, they clearly are annoyed that this war is happening and then their good names being tarnished.
No, I don't say
because
that
naturally
at all.
They don't want their guns and weapons sold, even if it could make them a ton of money. They would rather have peace and basically.
I'm not saying that,
but that's got to be it.
No,
right?
what I'm saying is they're not in control of this at all.
Well, they don't fully control it. I mean, it's a roll of the dice, but it's a loaded dice.
That's something that is pulled out, and some are saying they're the puppet masters. They started this.
Can you prove or disprove it?
How do you prove it?
Well, you follow the money. See who's sponsoring a lot of presidential candidates.
I can't prove that the moon is not made out of cheese. So I mean,
physics, bro,
Oh, okay.
But
again, proving that it's not currently snowing in Anchorage. I can't.
Not right now, unless we go online right now and look it up. But all I'm saying is that your spider senses, your intuition tells you fully that the military-industrial complex has no culpability to this whatsoever. And the whole time they've been wanting to do mission trips down in the Middle East or Islamic distributions.
Oh, do they want to sell their wares? Absolutely, any salesman would. Same thing with the gun
so
lobbies.
They clearly don't mind there being a war from a business sense.
Correct.
Okay, so Nikki Haley looks suspicious being in sort of like cahoots with, members of the military-industrial complex.
I look at it that Nikki Haley is a hawk. So that's
a warmonger? Is that a fair statement?
No, I say a hawk.
You mean like a physical bird that like
a war hawk?
Okay, so a warmonger.
No, I'm not saying.
What's the difference between a warmonger and a warhawk?
A warmonger, I don't know.
Okay, so could it be that these are pretty much the same terms and they're just Nikki Haley just doesn't have a good she doesn't have a good mark on all this. If indeed the military-industrial complex may be an actual variable to
Well, let
inducing what we would call.
Since we've gone there, let me go with what happened in the last debate. So
Please.
we had the Republican debate. We had Tim Scott said you have to cut off the head of the snake and call for airstrikes in Iran. So he wants to go to war with Iran.
That's pretty warmongering too.
Yeah. And guess what? 5 days later, what happened to Tim Scott?
You got kicked off the. Yeah, he's not. I believe he stepped down, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
He announced on Fox News
Because
that he was pulling out of the race.
could it be that
So
in the
he wants
modern
to start a
world,
war?
people aren't a big fan of wanting to go to war? And one good grace that we have in our modern world is it could be that social media helps as a massive checks and balance to these warmongering war hawks, as you put it.
I don't know about
Or maybe
social
the deep
media.
state.
He just he had
The
no
swamp.
shot of winning, and so he's getting out
Well,
now.
yeah, nobody wants to go.
But again, before Iowa, that's unusual because he's got money. He's got money in his coffers. So, but pull out now and not waste everybody's time. I'm good with that. During that same time, Ron DeSantis said if you harm one head on a service member, you'll have hell to pay. He's talking about Iran. And then Nikki Haley said you punch them one and you punch them hard and they'll back off. She's talking about Iran.
How would
and-
she know?
Well, she was UN ambassador.
Oh, so she did an exceptionally good job, I guess, keeping peace. My bad. I'm sorry about that.
No, it wasn't about keeping peace. She represented the United States in the UN. She was the U.S. ambassador, the UN.
Right. What's her track record as?
But she her track record is that she's dealt with foreign policy under
Well,
Trump.
that doesn't mean you're
administration.
good at it. I'm not saying she's not or is.
Yeah,
but what is her track
What
record?
is you and Nikki Haley suddenly? You've
Oh,
never
well,
mentioned Nikki before.
I haven't met her personally.
Not
but
now. She's
I mean, like just listen to her.
Has the military-industrial complex?
Well, you know
given
my
to her-
stance. I'm more
her
so brand on
campaign?
this. I'm not a fan of
Absolutely.
this.
There's no doubt that they probably
Right.
have.
So
and
I'm
they've probably
going to give her a
given it to
thumbs down
Scott.
myself, but that's just me because I don't really think we should try to escalate a war. So, yeah, new jobs could be created and certain people could profiteer off it, but the average person's probably not going to fare as well as like some of the people on top that are, have stock options in some of these major corporations that are military-industrial complex friendly, whatever they may be.
All right, hit me with the next one.
All right. No matter what side of the Israeli-Palestinian side you're on, do you think it's true that we can have a decent level of conversation about how to cope with the bombing of a civilian population? What's the best macroscopic solution to minimize damage, if there is any, to this situation? Or is it naive to assume it's too late to consider a ceasefire?
No, it's never too late to consider a ceasefire. And Netanyahu actually said that if terms are right and there is Hamas is willing to give up some hostages, he would go for or at least a training or a cessation.
C sounds like a C-section, but yeah.
She said by the seashore, in order to allow civilians to get out and hostages to get out. I believe they were looking at 4 hours.
I'm
a
glad
day.
I'm glad you said that because that brings a lot of comfort. Considering the next question, or maybe not the next one, but the one coming up here. In fact, maybe I should skip ahead.
Nah, go to the next one.
All right.
We'll
Well,
burn
let's
that
let's hold on to that one right there. And okay, so Obama himself said this, and he was trying to reason how to solve this existential crisis in the Middle East. So Obama had basically said concerning the issues right now going on in the Middle East, if you want to solve the problem, you have to take into the whole truth, and then have to admit nobody's hands are clean that have contributed to this escalation. Which sounds about right, but what do you think he meant by that?
That there are problems, obviously, with Hamas,
Right.
and also the Israelis, as they're trying to eradicate Hamas, they're knocking out civilians. Now, some of the issues that I had, and currently I think the number is like at 10,000, but again, who's reporting the 10,000 Palestinians killed?
Well, I'd like to know if there's 10,000. But that's a lot. That's like
it's a lot. But again, what you're getting this from is from Hamas. Those numbers are coming from Hamas. So the question is, all right. So then, where's the separation between Hamas members and Palestinians? I don't know if well, right now we can't get accurate numbers to separate that. But any civilians, obviously, is problematic. But what is the solution? I've heard, again, the calls for ceasefire.
Well, it's interesting you brought that up because Hillary was reported to say that calling for a ceasefire now, anybody that actually believes that a ceasefire is possible do not understand what Hamas is, and they don't realize that it's just not possible when reasoning with an organization like Hamas. Do you think she's actually right on this?
No, if the goal is, which it is for Israel and others, is to eradicate Hamas, there are a few ways to do it, and if you do a ceasefire, it's just going to take longer.
Yeah, but less people would die, and I guess if the whole world contributes to the economic, humanitarian aid towards the people of Palestine that are stuck in the Gaza Strip.
All right, so let's say that, so you do a ceasefire.
Yeah.
All right. What is Hamas going to do during that ceasefire?
Well, I would imagine if they're fanatical, they're probably going to rebuild their bunkers and infrastructures.
Bingo.
But there's a couple things that you can do. I mean, at this point, any individuals. What I don't get is there's obviously going to be brutal street fights, but if the Hamas government is or regime is so toxic to the individuals in Gaza, Palestine, any opportunity that they can escape out of there, like straight out of The Last of Us, they would if they're really that toxic. I mean, why would you stick around with a government like that? Right. So, I mean, I'm guessing, and this is just me either being idealistic or whatever, or naive. I don't know. I guess my pro-Palestinian friends would be like, you're being naive. But if the Israeli troops go in there and, they have to go through the street fights, but can find areas where they can free up, I guess, Gaza Palestinians from the threat of being forced to be human shields. I'm guessing that was the main reason why individuals that are still in the Gaza Palestine Strip that are not Hamas insurgents are still there. I mean, there's no other reason why they'd be there. They have no choice. They can't leave, right? So naturally, if you find a way to break the nest a little bit, then people should be able to escape through the cracks here and there. And as long as
you can't get, you have Israel on one side, you have Egypt, and Egypt has closed their border.
No, but you bring them into the Israeli side and show them, the good Samaritan, if you will. Even though I think maybe it's not the best analogy, but metaphorically speaking,
Israel let the
Palestinians that clearly are not members of Hamas, and you'd assume they were probably patted down before they get to the Israeli area, and they're free to just kind of slowly acclimate back into society, especially if one of these dudes or women happen to be a commuter from the Gaza Strips, like we were talking about, that happened to be employed at one time in the Israeli side. If they got a good track record, what's no harm, no foul. I mean, just be like, listen, sorry about everything. And you'd think that, there would be some reparations for the damages that were done, if it's possible.
Reparations paid by who?
Well, if the Israeli government really wants to show the upper class here, I suppose, to the best of their abilities, assist with the rebuilding.
And so the money comes from Israel going into Gaza and then the Gaza government starts to rebuild Gaza?
If they rebuild Gaza, the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip should have first rights at what to do. Kind of like I guess the people in Hawaii there, right? But the but as a show of good humanity, I mean, like nobody wanted this to happen ideally, and if the Israeli government is truly as noble as they're saying they are, like during their campaign, where they're to take out Hamas. They really, if they can help it, they don't want to destroy property or human lives, and that's fair. But then naturally, maybe not pitch in everything. I don't know. It's up to them, but like help rebuild it in a way where, a two-state solution, I guess, can be rebuilt. And as naive as I guess that's a well-timed laugh right there. But I think like that's probably the best way they can keep a good PR, and at the same time, in theory, show every naysayer who's pro-Palestinian all over the world that they're not there to take over the Gaza Strip. With that said, this was straight from, again, this was...
Go ahead, hit me.
All right, here we go. Whew. All right, so another possibility is the official intention, according to Israeli intelligence ministry. Okay, let me rephrase that. Another possibility of what could happen is that the official intelligence... Take 3. The official intention for Israel, according to the Israeli intelligence ministry, is to clear the Gaza region, which is they published. That's what they want to do. They want to clear the Gaza region overall, which could create yet another massive migrant crisis. Like they want to clear the region, or I should say, they should clear the Gaza region of all Palestinians.
And how do they do that? Where did the 2 million Palestinians who are in Gaza go?
That's a great question. So let's investigate that a little bit. Okay, so let me rephrase this for the audience once again, or maybe I'll just
that's what he said. How about some solutions?
Okay, yeah. So yeah, you're right. Russell Brand was saying, according to his sources, that the Israeli intelligence ministry their aims is to clear the Gaza Strip, which could, not necessarily will, create yet another massive migrant crisis. And the increase of migrants means people will have to go somewhere, of course. In a 10-page document dated on October 13th, 2023, named Plus 972, Israeli intelligence ministry had stated in I guess this press publication, a recommendation of a full populated transfer is preferred as is a preferred course of action.
This is the same intelligence that failed to detect October 7th coming.
Well, that leads then to more the ball being on is the Israeli government to, I guess, either do the right thing or show some good competency for an exit strategy of how not to make this a terrible mess for the people in Palestine. So what Russell Brand's basically saying, and it's not him, but the sources he was noting, was that there was this document published called Plus 972, dated October 13, 2023, that seemed to insinuate that it's okay with the idea of a full population transfer of the Gaza Palestinians. It's insinuated, right? As a way to solve the problem, just get everybody out of there. And this would call on the international community to support this endeavor, if possible, and then just, we'll figure out Joe Biden loves migrants, so there you go. There's a bunch of new migrants, right? That's kind of what's being implied here by just logic, not necessarily Russell Brand, but just logic to try to interpret this publication.
Well, again, the publication. He's saying it's from some secret source somewhere that.
Well, look it up.
And again,
plus
October
272.
October 13th.
I'm sorry, plus 972.
October 13th, 2023.
Yeah, I believe that was the date. Yeah.
So this document was after
October 7th.
Yeah.
I know we'd have to look that one up. I mean, but you could, folks, you can actually look this entire.
Any jackass can come up and write a document and sign it and then give it to Brandon, he'll read it as if it's law. Come on.
I didn't say it was law, but I mean,
Or that it's a
let's
official
say, what if
document.
What if this is actually prophetic? What if this ends up creating a massive exodus of Gaza Palestinians outside of the Gaza Strip? So there's a massive migration problem now on
That's
top
what-
of the already existing ones.
Where again the Palestinians in the north can't get out. They can't get out of the country. Excuse me.
Assuming they could, there's a way
Right.
for the world powers to receive them. Then
Where?
okay, well I guess
There's nowhere that they can go.
it's funny because
Who's going to accept them?
Joe
No.
Biden. I mean, he's all about open borders, right?
No, he's not.
Well, not now, but he was for the
No,
last
he
year.
wasn't.
You know, so this whole time, he really didn't want all these migrants coming in,
Correct.
despite the fact that Kamala Harris was our border czar, and she,
Correct.
it sounded like she was okay with that kind of.
That's not true.
That's not true.
That's not true.
Despite all the sound bites and news bits and every Ben Shapiro show and Steve Turley and Tim Pool.
It's a seller for the right.
And it's a seller for the right. So this whole time they were working harder than Trump to keep those
It's
borders.
not that. It's a Congress issue. If they ever do change the immigration law,
Mm-hmm.
then it can be enforced. But Congress has failed to do so. Why? Well, one reason is that it's a great seller for Republicans. They shout this every 4 years we hear, or less. We're hearing it yearly now. We didn't hear it that much under during the Trump administration. We didn't hear it during the Bush administration. 8 years of Bush, we didn't hear anything. And people weren't coming across the border. Not in the numbers they are currently, no doubt. But it was a problem then. And again, that is a selling point. Another selling point that used to be for the right was abortion. But once they caught the car and...
Caught the car. I never heard that term.
Yeah, the dog catches the car, it keeps chasing the
Oh,
car,
I
and it
see.
catches the car. What do you do with it?
Waxy old van, huh?
So
Spelled America with a K.
once Roe v. Wade went down,
Yup.
they got what they wanted. And so what's happened then? You caught the car. Now what are you doing with it? Nothing. That used to be a firebrand point to get the base out.
Are you saying that a lot of these agendas and crusades that either side of the political aisle pushes, whether it's in Congress or just in the Senate or even in local governments, it's just talking points to get people to be fired up and kind of follow something, but nothing ever really gets done at the end of the day?
Well, we see that. We saw that the last 10 years, Congress had their lowest poll ratings because
People are starting to
nothing gets
catch
done.
on, maybe? How it
It's- I
affected
don't know about people catching on. It's just
that they
it's-
don't really
it's-
represent the people's best interests, maybe?
oh well, we already know that. We know that with sensible gun laws.
But it's not.
Where-
It's
where's-
not the system of getting people elected to Congress. It's the problem of once they get in there, how do they not get seduced by the dark side? I think is what the average person is thinking. How do you keep them straight and narrow, if you will? A Maximus, like in the movie Gladiator, instead of a
Well,
Commodus.
there's only one way, and that's to vote them out. But they don't. You have a lot of sections that are
term.
gerrymandered that they're not getting out. They're not getting out.
So you really can't. That's probably an issue. You can't fire Congress people outside of the term limit.
They don't. When your representative votes against your interests, and you turn around and vote for them anytime they're up, there's no consequence.
Well, you mean like what's going on in Chicago, for instance, with the highly leftist liberal mayors that seem to keep just kicking the citizens of Chicago right in the pants over and over because they just keep voting for individuals like this in office, and things just keep getting worse. That's what you mean, right? Not necessarily that, but just the analogy.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, that makes sense.
I can give you a better one. Was Marion Barry in D.C. when when he was sentenced federally, corruption, drugs, prostitution, whatever.
The classics.
Got bagged, ended up in federal penitentiary, and then comes out and then runs locally, and they put him back in office.
Yeah,
I've got problems with that.
Yeah,
I have problems with until again with this current administration. I never understood why Medicare and Medicaid could not negotiate with drug companies in order to get cheaper prices for drugs. And what was stopping it? Well, obviously the drug manufacturers, lobbyists,
big pharmas, big pharma complex,
right? And so what happened?
Throwing their tentacles into lobbyists in Congress. So isn't that similar to the military-industrial complex doing the same thing when it comes to like weapons and manufacturing crisis to sell firearms and stuff and profiteer?
No, you're saying they manufacture crisis.
Yeah,
that's saying that they're manipulating stuff to start wars.
Well. Would it be safe to say that, for instance,
what you're saying.
That is what I'm saying.
Right.
Would it be safe to say that, for instance, if not necessarily literally manufacture, but then opportunize a situation to create a profit from a calamity, like COVID and Pfizer, right? Can I say that, or am I out of line? How about like COVID and the big pharma? That's probably a better way to say it.
You can mention Pfizer. You can mention.
Well, I'm just saying. Like, I mean, a lot of people now look at the COVID virus and they say, okay, maybe nobody engineered that, right? Although a lot of people have their doubts on that. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, it just happened to occur. Big Pharma opportunized that. That's the general consensus, and as a result, they really manipulated the cultural landscape and forced a lot of people to get.
When you say they manipulated, what do you mean? They didn't manufacture it.
No, they
came out of China.
They opportunized it, and then they were able to make tons of money.
Yeah, they did a solution. They came up with a vaccine.
Yeah, and they tried to get rid of any competitive ways of solving the virus crisis, like such as preventive healthcare and stuff. Those were never pushed simultaneously. We had like 3 episodes where we had this conversation, so we'll skip that. But you get where I'm going with this, right?
Yeah.
The point is, just like in Star Wars, if you manufacture a crisis, you can get a lot of money if you know how to spin, the said industry for that crisis that can provide a solution. And I think that's where Russell Brand and millions of people all over the world now are starting to kind of pick up and go, as long as those entities can somehow create or push their tentacles into, like, whether it's Congress or whatever government in whatever part of the world they're in, therein lies the problem. Therein lies why these things just don't seem to get solved, when the obvious solution for a lot of people is, like, we don't want a World War III. Or because we the people of the earth, I believe I can say this with a straight face, not only in the U.S., but in Europe, even China, right? Russia. I think the average person doesn't really want that. Maybe the higher-ups that are opportunizing in their own sort of military-industrial complex branch, or whatever you want to call it, because there's money to be made from these things. But the average person would rather just everybody got along. I don't think that's an insane idea, and I think the majority of the population wants that. And from that point of view, then the Russell Brands of the world aren't wrong. Like, how do you create peace, and how do you create an armistice so that not an armistice? What's the word? How do you create a ceasefire so that these things don't escalate? I think those are very deep, reasonable talking points. And let me ask you, how do you, from everything we've babbled so far, how do you create a ceasefire so these things don't escalate?
Well, right now, United States, Qatar, Egypt, and Israel and Hamas are all talking, backdoor, trying to get the hostages out. And no ceasefire or temporary ceasefire will happen, according to Netanyahu, unless hostages are part of the deal.
Okay,
So there is talk about some 80 some odd women and children.
Why wouldn't Hamas want to comply? That aren't they the good guys according to the pro-Palestinian?
No, the reason Hamas wasn't complying, that's their trump card. The hostages right now.
Well, yeah, naturally, but I mean, if you're a pro-Palestinian supporter and you see Hamas as simply just good old-fashioned militiamen, then you would assume that they have more of a noble agenda than the way the grumpy, political war hawks of the West want them to look like, right? And they're really just, people that are freedom fighters fighting for their land and their equity and their economic opportunity from either an apartheid or some social inequality that was created by the Israeli government. That's what you're thinking. If I'm generalizing, for instance, a couple friends I've talked to, one in particular that I'm thinking right now as we speak, that's what's going on in your head. So if that's true, then wouldn't you be surprised that Hamas does not want to get rid of the hostages? You'd think? Because that would show a less than noble...
Oh, sure. All right, so you're Hamas. You turn over the 200 some odd hostages for the release of a certain number of Palestinian prisoners in Israel. Okay. Once you make that deal and make that swap,
you reset the teams, reset the game,
revisit
the halftime show.
What's going to keep Israel from not coming out and taking you out?
Well, you're Hamas. You are the noble, freedom fighter.
Noble?
Well, that's what you think, right?
Well, going into Israel and indiscriminately killing civilians.
Well, according to my friend, they had a right to.
I can't speak of that.
Okay, I'm just trying to see.
No, you can't
both
see
sides.
That. I can't see.
I don't need it. Sharing this video may give a friend a glimpse of hope, that ounce of strength they needed to rise above the ashes. So hit a like and don't forget to share content.